Hello, CAC. Good to be seen again. Here today, I've been kind of nostalgic, thinking back to certain things in my childhood, and I want to share a couple stories with you about two friends of mine. The first was my friend Gene Watts, the second, my friend Martin Bassett. And before that, I just want to read some verses out of Psalm 139, which kind of set the context for what I want to say. We read in Psalm 139 of God, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. How precious to me are your thoughts, God. How vast is the sum of them." And keep those verses in mind as I tell you these stories about my friends Gene and Martin. So Gene was one of my best friends when I was like 4th, 5th, 6th grade. We did everything together. We both loved basketball. We played hours and hours and hours and hours of basketball on his driveway with his basket hung on his garage. We would sleep over at each other's houses on the weekends. The best thing is that his dad was the official scorekeeper for the Boise State, in those days college, not university, Boise State College basketball team. And because of that, we would get into all the games free. We'd go early with Gene's dad, and we watched a ton of games. And I still remember the starting five for like a couple of those years. The center was Keith Burke. He was from Ontario. Guards were Wendell Hart, Washington, D.C. The other guard was Steve Lovelace. I'm not sure where he was from. The forwards were Bill O'Tay, my favorite player, from Washington, D.C., and Renee Ruth from Patterson, New Jersey. Amazing I can remember those names and even some of the games. But anyway, the first summer of our middle school years, after the 7th grade, Gene and his father were killed in an airplane crash up in Alaska. His father had got his pilot's license, bought a plane. They were up there fishing, and they flew into some heavy clouds, and he flew the plane into the side of a mountain, and they both were killed. What a shock to us. And me and a couple friends went to their funeral. It was a dual father-son funeral. And then later that fall, I called up his mom, and I said, "Could I come over and visit?" And she said, "Of course you can." And so I went over and visited. And, you know, I'm this shy, kind of socially awkward kid, unsure of myself, but I wanted to know how they were doing, and I cared about them, and I just wanted to see if they were okay. And so I went and visited his mom and his sister, his two younger brothers. It was a little bit awkward because I'm pretty quiet, but I did that a couple times. My friend, Gene Watts. And then I had another friend, Martin Bassett, and again, Martin was a good close friend in primary school, middle school. In fact, Martin, Gene, and I hung around in the same crowd with some other guys. And Martin and I both loved to run. We did a lot of track together, a lot of sprints together. We hung out at each other's houses. I always wanted to go to his house because there was very little parental supervision. His parents were separated, maybe even divorced. His dad was never around. His mom worked, and it was much easier to get in trouble and have fun at his house than at my house. And so I like to go over there most of the time. And I still clearly remember sitting on his bed in the bedroom he shared with his older brother Tom, listening to Beatle records on their record player. And that was my first real exposure to the Beatles, where I came to love the Beatles. But that happened in Martin Bassett's bedroom. Now, during our sophomore year of high school, Martin and I had drifted apart, kind of went in different directions, but he came down with rheumatic fever and was hospitalized. And I asked my mom if she could take me up to the hospital because I wanted to visit him. And so one day after school, she drove me up there. I walked into his hospital room. He looked at me kind of like, what are you doing here? And that was a good question. But again, I just cared about him, and I wanted to see if he was okay. I wanted to see how he was doing. And then later on, he was released from the hospital, went home, couldn't go to school for several weeks, maybe several months. I don't exactly remember. But I remember going over to visit him at home. And he was laying out on the couch in the living room, blanket on him, still sick. And again, I just wanted to see how he was doing. I cared about him. I wanted to make sure he was okay. And those are two of the things I thought about this afternoon. And I just thought about the question, like, what's going on here with me in middle school, me in high school? Why am I pastoring Jean's family and Martin? Why am I doing this? What's going on? And as I thought about it again, and I realized this years and years later, but that's what God made me to do. And that phrase in Psalm 139, that God created my inmost being. He knit me together in my mother's womb. And when he did that, as a part of my DNA, there were some genes there that had pastor on them. Love, empathy, compassion. And I believe God planted those genes, planted that pastoring bent in me in my mother's womb. And it was starting to come out when I was in middle school and high school. Even though I wasn't following Christ at that time, I had no idea what a spiritual gift was. I had no idea what the calling of God was. And it was not something that I did. It came out of something of who I was. What about you? What about you? Think about the stories in your life. Take a good look at your life. What do you see? What do you find? How has God created your inmost being in your mother's womb? What are your passions? What are your gifts? What are your talents? What gets you out of bed in the morning? And are you following and doing the person that God created you to be and to do? Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to these stories and putting up with me today on my nostalgia kick. Hope you're all doing well. I love you. And until next time, bye-bye.